Quite a few, but I was recently in China for President Xi's announcement of the Belt and Road, big initiative. But then when I was just walking in the street in China, I noticed the majority of the bikes were all the same color. The majority of the bikes now in 130 cities in China are provided by OFO and Mobike, two sharing companies. Companies that did not exist 500 days ago and that now have put millions of bikes on the street and have changed the landscape completely. So that actually gives me confidence when I say we will have renewable energy in Korea and we'll have electric cars that will be autonomous and that people can share like an Uber ride. People in Korea like to have their own cars. And when I asked my colleague in China, do you use Mobike? He said, of course. I live in an apartment on the 23rd floor. Why would I own my bike? So that I find the most impressive as an example of how rapid people's mindset can change and how new green technology can make a big change in society. So for a long time, ministers of economy and ministers of finance felt that their primary goal was to grow the economy, and when environmental groups or NGOs came and said you need to look after the environment, the standard answer was, I'm sorry, we first have to provide income, we first have to provide schooling, we first have to provide healthcare for our people, and then we will worry about the environment. But you can see here in Seoul what is the consequence. You know, my son's school, the nurse has to check in the morning if the kids can play outside. My son's soccer tournament last Saturday was cancelled because of air pollution. So I think the world is learning that we cannot be worried about growth only. We have to be worried about the quality of growth. And we call the good quality of growth green growth. New government, President Moon's government, is taking really encouraging steps to transform the energy landscape, particularly in Korea. Closing the 8 oldest coal-fired power plants in June was a good first symbolic action. I'm a little bit worried that there will be too much emphasis on the nuclear side of things, which overshadows the other side, the coal mines, the transportation, the coal-fired power plants, the opportunities to do things which are maybe easier to do to address. But I think the government is trying really hard to address an issue that badly needed to be addressed. Well, that should help. I think as a guest in Korea, I observed that many people in Korea blame the Chinese side. And I visited the Ministry of the Environment in China for an event we had recently. And there indeed, it was clear that the ministers of environment of China, Japan and Korea that had met recently, the number one issue was fine dust. And indeed, maybe Korea says 80% of the problem comes from China and 20% is in Korea, and the Chinese say no, 80% is in Korea and 20% from China. I think it would be helpful to clarify the numbers, but more importantly, the action needs to be on both sides. There is a lot of action in China to deal with fine dust because the problem is even worse in Beijing. So yes, they are investing very quickly to clean up air. They are closing coal-fired power plants. They are introducing large numbers of electric buses. So I do believe that China is taking action and that they are sharing their experience with other countries through the Belt and Road Initiative, and that it would be very helpful for China and Korea to collaborate. Well, I think it's good to remember first that the US administration was very instrumental in bringing about the Paris Agreement. Without them, there probably wouldn't have been one. So I'm grateful to the US administration for that. President Trump thinks that he has to protect his coal industry by withdrawing from the Paris Agreement. He doesn't know, apparently, or doesn't realize that it was fracking. It was the natural gas developments in the US that actually brought the energy prices down, that ruined the coal industry. So there's not much hope that those coal jobs are coming back. The energy landscape has changed definitively. Solar energy has become the cheapest energy in 58 countries in 2016. So yes, it would be very helpful if the Trump administration helped pushing, because we want to go from 2 to 1.5 degrees global warming, but he can't stop the momentum behind the Paris Agreement. So there are too many converging interests, too many market forces that are pushing in the same direction. And we really all need to push as fast as we can. So hopefully President Trump will join the cause, but he is not able to stop it in my view. Of course you have major automotive companies. I'm waiting for my next car to be an electric Hyundai or Kia. Haven't seen those yet, but I hope to see those. So there is really a lot of strength in Korea to produce the key technologies that drive green growth, together with big data, with smart grids. A lot is available here in the country. Now, when we speak to companies like that, they say, yes, we're doing this in the US, we have projects in Japan, maybe in India. We would like to see those companies also active in Africa or in Indonesia or in the Pacific. That is where we can help sometimes, because there is not yet a market, and we're working with companies to let them see there are commercial opportunities, and sometimes to bring the two together and reduce the risk using funds from the Green Climate Fund. But ultimately, companies like the ones you have here in Korea are going to have to play a huge role in bringing about the shift to a green economy. So we're living in a very interesting time. Here in Asia, the focus is very much on the air pollution or fine dust problems that the rapid growth have caused, from Ulaanbaatar to Beijing to Seoul to New Delhi. But in Africa, the primary interest is that they are subject to climate change impacts, droughts, floods, and that they have an enormous number of young people coming onto the market that need jobs. So unlocking the potential of green growth in Africa has everything to do with bringing cheap, renewable energy to African countryside, so there is sustainable energy for everybody, and to see how that energy can indeed power the economy with green jobs. In addition to green and clean energy, there are also tremendous opportunities to make agriculture, which is the employment for still 60% of the next generation of Africans, more climate smart, so that it can indeed deal with climate change and provide employment for young people, as well as make their cities greener. Smart cities, you say here, cities that provide sustainable services, transport, sanitation, water, energy to all their citizens. So GGGI has grown quite quickly with strong support from the Korean government. And this year, for the first year, we are on target to bring close to $500 million, close to $500 million of green finance to the projects we have helped develop in developing countries. The coming years, we want to scale that up. So we have a current strategic plan to show how we can help governments deliver on their nationally determined contributions for the Paris Agreement, how we can help them achieve their sustainable development goals, by that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, bring green jobs, help clean up air pollution, bring sustainable services to people in cities, adapt economies to climate change, and have healthy ecosystems. Those are the 6 key outcomes that we help our member countries achieve, and we think we can bring $2.5 billion of green investment to the table between now and 2020.